Hello and welcome to a special bonus episode of the It's the Pictures podcast. I'm your host, Max Colville, and today I'm going to be covering some capsule reviews from the Toronto International Film Festival 2021. It's the Pictures was honored to cover the festival this year as press and um, watch some really terrific films. It's always a pleasure. I wish that we could actually be on the ground in Toronto, but given the state of the world, that just wasn't going to happen. The selection of films differed for people who were in person and people who were viewing films online. Of course, if you've been aware of the news in the film world, there's been this push for theatrical exhibition, and especially films like Denis Villeneuve's Dune, they weren't ever going to be available digitally for review. So some of the films that I'm reviewing from the festival are smaller. You might not have heard of them, but I hope that they come on your radar and you look out for them when they finally come out. And as always, if you are looking for the written version of these reviews, they are available on the Substack, the It's the Picture Substack newsletter that I write, and what I share here will be pretty similar to what you can find there. So if you prefer the written version, that's where you can find it. All right, so the first movie I'm going to review is the new movie from Celine Sciamma, the director of the critically acclaimed Portrait of a Lady on Fire. This one is going to be distributed by Neon. They distributed things. Well, they distributed Portrait of a Lady on Fire last time, and of course brought Parasite out to great acclaim. But that's neither here or there. The story is about a girl who finds the most amazing secret. Following the loss of her grandmother, Nellie, played by Josephine Sanz, returns to her mother's childhood home to clean it out, presumably before selling it. This experience is understandably difficult for her mother, who leaves the house the following morning. Alone with just her father to finish cleaning the house, Nellie ventures into the woods and finds her mother's old treehouse. While there, she meets another young woman named Marion, played by Gabrielle Sanz, who reminds her of someone very similar. Petite Maman has a very deliberate pace, and even though it's an extremely brief runtime of just over an hour, you'll swear that you've been there just long enough to see this magical moment come to life. The movie kind of reminded me of the wish fulfillment in Steven Spielberg's AI artificial intelligence. And I was simply swept away by the story, and I'm willing to bet that you will as well. The next movie I watched at TIFF was entitled Mothering Sunday, and this one is based on a 2016 novel by English author Graham Swift. And this story will be familiar to audiences who have fallen in love with Downton Abbey and Bridgerton. Jane Fairchild works as a maid for a wealthy family known as the Nevins. They've been family friends with another family known as the Sheringhams for years. And Jane fancies Paul Sheringham. I mean, that's not really a great result there of a maid fancying a gentleman. Perhaps fancy is too light a word, because Mothering Sunday spends a lengthy amount of footage of Jane, played by Odessa Young, and Paul, played by Josh O'Connor, naked and having a torrid affair. There's a whole lot of nudity in this film. There's just no two ways around. I was pretty surprised how much there is. But you see, the problem comes from the fact that Paul isn't going to marry Jane. While he fancies her and he has a good time with her, he has other obligations. She's outside of his class, and he's expected to marry another woman named Emma. You can certainly imagine that this affair isn't going to end well. As for the movie, I felt like it really doesn't get going until a third act twist changes the trajectory of all the participants. Uh, the film utilizes a disjointed time device, not unlike the recent Little Woman adaptation, and that kind of toys with our expectations. I'm not sure that the film really needed that device in order to work. I think that you could have told this pretty straightforward and had the same effect. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fantastic work from the co-stars of this film, Colin Firth and Olivia Colman, who play Mr. and Mrs. Nevins. I always love Olivia Colman in movies, and I think she's like a really big gift to cinema. You might remember her role more prominently from the movie a few years back called The Favorite, but she was even very good in last year's movie with Anthony Hopkins. I think it was called like The Father or something like that. That was a very good performance as well. I also really enjoyed the film score of Mothering Sunday. It's from composer Morgan Kibbe, and she used to be part of the band M83 and worked on Eva Hussen's previous picture, Bang Gang. As far as like how I felt like about the movie and if I enjoyed it, I guess I was kind of disappointed in it. By the end I was invested, but it took a long time to get there. But if you like things like Downton Abbey and Bridgerton, I'm sure you probably will enjoy this. I think it will be right up your alley, and you'll find something to take home happily from this tale when it comes out. Okay, the next film I watched actually was a film that I missed out of Sundance. It premiered there earlier in 2021, and the film is called Jockey. And to be honest with you, chances are you've probably seen a movie like Jockey before. Jackson Silva, played here by an excellent Clifton Collins Jr., is a horse jockey nearing the end of his career. Why, he's one of the best at what he does. His body isn't holding together anymore. This news comes at a very inopportune time because the trainer he's been working with might have a championship-ready horse at her disposal. And, you know, he could have that glory of being the jockey of that horse. As if facing the end of his career wasn't enough, a young man by the name of Gabriel, played by Moises Arias, has been following him around the circuit. Silva learns that the young jockey might be his son from a previous relationship. Now Silva has to decide if he's going to let this young man into his life. Jockey immediately brings to mind other films like Darren Aronofsky's The Wrestler and Chloe Zhao's The Rider. Stories about men who don't really know what else they're going to do with their life at the abrupt end of their careers. Jockey is similar, but in other ways it's really great. You know, if you thought like you didn't need a story like this because you've seen similar things, this one certainly makes its case that you should check this one out as well. It has an amazing leading performance by Collins Jr. I had to look up his credits and make sure he hadn't been a jockey elsewhere. He's that good. And the film's really put together well as too. It's like the cinematography from Adolfo Veloso is gorgeous, filled with a lot of shots captured at the golden hour and crisp campfire photography as well. Jockey being familiar doesn't really hurt it because it's just that good. Definitely seek this one out when Sony Pictures Classics releases it this winter. I believe they're planning like something like a Christmas Day release, limited, and maybe it'll be rolled out more in January. I hope that it gets a good amount of theaters because I think that a lot of people would really enjoy this one. The next one I watched was a music biopic on Dionne Warwick, and it's called Dionne Warwick, Don't Make Me Over. And honestly, I'm kind of tired of this like standard music documentary format. When Dionne Warwick, Don't Make Me Over begins, it's almost like we're watching a trailer for what we're about to watch.
or like a summary of the essay that we're going to go through. It makes it kind of uh, structured like a school book report, and that's not really riveting to me. Um, what as for what's actually there, we get a lot of great archival footage of Dionne Warwick and her famous songwriting duo of Burt Bacharach and Hal David. A lot of the staples of her career are also mentioned, songs like Don't Make Me Over, Do You Know the Way to San Jose, and Say a Little Prayer. There's also an extended sequence with her famous song That's What Friends Are For, and basically how she wrote the song to support people in the AIDS epidemic, and how she forfeited all her future earnings from that song to be used for AIDS relief. And that was really a kind gesture to do. And a lot, there's some time spent on that sequence. I thought like the movie's fine, right? It does what it set out to do, but it's definitely not my favorite music biopic by any means. There's been so many great ones done recently, and to fall back on this basic formula kind of it didn't do much for me. I don't necessarily believe I can recommend it for anyone except for fans of Dionne Warwick. I'm just not sure anybody else is going to get much out of this one. And then the last picture I'm going to talk about on this block of reviews is a movie coming out from Amazon Prime Video. It's called Encounter. Billed as a science fiction movie, Encounter has a much different story to tell. Starring Riz Ahmed, Oscar nominated for his performance in Sound of Metal, Encounter tells the story of two boys who join their father on a journey to a safe haven. Why are they looking for this safe haven? Well, it seems that the world has been infected by an alien threat, and the boy's father, Malek Khan, played by Ahmed, will do anything he can to protect them. The boys have missed their father since he has been away from home for the past 2 years, but they are excited to see him, even if it means leaving in the dead of night. Of course, this makes the older child, the oldest boy, a little bit suspicious, and he begins to wonder exactly what's going on. Without spoiling anything, I really did enjoy Ahmed in this one. He absolutely sells a man running from an alien invasion. The movie in some ways reminded me of the 80s, I think it's like 70s, not 80s film, Terence Malik's Badlands. That one is a really fantastic film that Encounter reminded me a lot of. I guess my biggest problems with this movie and why I can't give it like a wild recommendation is that the script is kind of messy. Some of the decisions and dialogue choices are just absolutely horrendous. But even despite that, I still felt myself engaged at the end. I guess this one comes with a tentative recommendation for those who are really big fans of Riz Ahmed and want to see something that is a little less familiar than what they would expect. All right, so that's going to cover the first round of reviews from the Toronto International Film Festival 2021. Like I said at the beginning, if you'd like to read these reviews instead of listen, they're available on the Substack. It's the pictures. Enjoy them there. Let's do station identification, right? You can follow the podcast. It's the Pick Pod. You can follow me at MH Coville. You can follow John at John L. Gilpatrick. You can download us on Stitcher, iTunes, listen to us on Spotify. Wherever you can, please review us, give us 5 stars. Your reviews will help us reach a larger audience and help us continue making this great content for you. We're also on Letterboxd, and you can find us there and all the movies that we're watching and updated list of what movies we recommend during our podcast episodes. All right, stay tuned. If you're listening to this, part 2 is just around the corner. Take care.